One more look back at the Iowa win against Albany. Was Mark Gronowski as bad as we thought? We bring in David Eickholt today, Locked On Hawkeye.
You are Locked On Hawkeyes, your daily podcast on the Iowa Hawkeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, welcome in. I'm Trent, Condon, joined today by David Eickholt, and this is the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Thanks for being with us and making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. David Eickholt joining us 24/7 sports, long time on the Iowa beat. I've been covering the Hawkeyes for a long time, as well as we take a look back at the opener against Albany. And David, good to see you once again. Maybe not the opener a lot of people envisioned on Saturday at Kinnick.
No, it certainly wasn't. And I'll tell you, I know we're going to get into Mark Gronowski, but I feel like Chicken Little, where the sky is falling and then everybody else looks at him like he's crazy. Except I don't think the sky is falling, and everyone around me is thinking that the sky is falling. But I'll tell you, it wasn't the opener that I think people expected. I do think that there were some things that were positive. Still, I like Tim Lester's running schemes. Xavier Williams obviously was tremendous. A little bit concerned about the secondary still. I did not like that stretch where they gave up that touchdown drive. Jack Shields went 6 for 6 for 70 yards on that drive. And look at Rocco Becht and what he did this past week. I mean, that's can't really afford to slip up too much there. Iowa's offensive line looks as good as advertised. But, even Kirk kind of joked about it after Trent that he probably shouldn't have said how healthy the team was because, boy, there were some weird things that happened, including Bryce George. And, God bless him. We'll see if he even ends up coming back this season. But he got hurt in warmups. And Kirk Ferentz said that was probably the first time he's ever seen that in his entire career.
So that plays out in that fashion. Bryce George, that at minimum was going to be a depth piece for them and going to help out. And if injuries happen to tackle or even in the interior, he was going to be able to guy that you felt like was going to be able to help like that as he became more acclimated at the D1 level. Well, it is the headliner. It's the top of the fold. You're a newspaper guy. It is Mark Gronowski in his play. The 44 yards passing out of him, 48 as a team, a 40-yarder out of Hank Brown. And I was there. My seat was a little bit different than my normal spot at Kinnick Stadium from the normal spot with my buddies. I was actually in the end zone as I was there with my family, so I had the kids there and got a really good vantage point. It's not quite the all 22 because you can't zoom in because you're just sitting there watching, but had a couple of look at things. And yes, then concerned on the missed passes from Mark Gronowski, but also seeing there were a few different times there were guys running free, including one in particular with Sam Phillips, where as soon as he cut across the face of the safety and behind the linebacker, he was home free. But I could see on that play, that was Gronowski's read. He was looking that whole way, saw it. It was also like he got a mental block and he didn't unleash it. That's where my concerns. A couple of missed throws. Okay, that's going to happen, maybe working your way back. But there were times down the field, they were there, and it didn't even look like Gronowski was looking.
No, and even you could tell Sam Phillips was a little bit frustrated during that time too. And I'll tell you, just based off that punt return that Phillips did have, that's a guy you have to get the football to. I mean, that was an absolutely electric return. I mean, they run back 30 yards, then go juke out about 4 people. I'm convinced he would have had a shot to go all the way. I think he was tired when he hit midfield, but you think about, he probably ran the length of the field just to go back and get the ball and cut back across, right? I will say I did think that underthrow to Phillips when he was in the end zone, I thought it was tipped in real time.
I? Yep.
I really thought it was tipped, and even Gronowski knew that he really messed up. The thing that I'm kind of taking away from all this, Trent, and again, it's a little bit different than I think most people are. This is a guy with over 12,000 all-purpose yards. This is a guy with over 130 touchdowns. This is a guy who's won a national title at the FCS level. It's a guy who's won the FCS Heisman. He did not forget how to throw a football. He did not forget how to play football. Absolutely, there's concerns. Absolutely, my eyebrows raised a little bit. He has to be better. But I'll tell you, that was the first thing he said. Before he was asked a question, he praised everyone around him. And when it came back to him, he did not want to talk about himself in a positive light at all. He did say there was good things in terms of schemes. Getting Kane Weechin, his first career receiving touchdown, was good. The offensive line I actually thought was outstanding most of the day, even in pass pro. He does have to trust his receivers a little bit more. I do think that they kept the game plan vanilla in this game because they did not want to give Iowa State any sort of indication about what they're trying to do. The other part of it too is I'm not going to really judge Mark until probably after Rutgers or Indiana. Just you have to let him back, get in the groove of things. But this is going to be a big staple to his legacy at Iowa, depending on how he comes back and performs in this game. But he's been a model of consistency throughout his career. He's done so much. I get it. It's the FBS, it's Power 4, it's Iowa, right? Two totally different things. I'm not going to count out a guy with that list of accolades. And he's been a gamer. He has moxie. He's proven it time and time again. If he struggles against Rutgers, Iowa State, and Indiana, all right, Trent, we can have a different discussion.
So I want to take this another step. And because I'm not overly concerned, I was frustrated and certainly not what I anticipated, but there are concerns. And I want to take you back to last season, talking to you, talking to other people on the beat. There were not exactly glowing reviews, and it wasn't just Kids Day as bad as Cade McNamara looked. There were many people that believed that Tim Lester didn't want Cade McNamara to be the starter, that he wanted to have Brendan Sullivan be the guy a year ago, and obviously that didn't play out. But we heard a lot of the same kind of things that we're hearing now with Gronowski, with McNamara coming off the injury. Just give him a little bit of time. And I take it a step further. The two times we got to hear from Tim Lester here during August camp, both times he talked about how tremendous Hank Brown is. I don't want to put anything out there that there is some kind of controversy and Tim Lester's not able to play the quarterbacks that he wants. That's not what I'm saying at all. But at least, can you see where I'm coming from? That feels like there's a lot of similarities in what we went through last August.
Maybe a little bit, but I also think he's just trying to promote Hank Brown. Because if you look at Hank Brown's tape from the open spring practice, Trent, and I said it before, and I'm saying this without overreacting, it was the worst quarterback play I had seen in Iowa. He'd been on campus for 2 months, but he was so jittery in the pocket. You thought Mark Gronowski looked jittery. Look at Hank Brown when he gets pressure in the pocket. That's where he still needs to grow. When it comes to Mark, the one thing Mark I thought did a great job of is he's putting his shoulder down. He's not concerned about his shoulder, by the way, if you couldn't tell by the hits he was taking and trying to run over people. There is a new element with the offense with Mark Gronowski in there. I do think his confidence is going to grow. I thought he made some good decisions, and he even said he has to stay in the pocket longer than he did. I think he was so used to trying to get out and escape in space in terms of South Dakota State that was a big reason why he did it. But the other thing is when you compare last season with Cade McNamara, I'd even go a step further, Trent. Let's go back the last 5 years. There were certain elements of their game where we hate to say it, but in real time, but we can say it now, they were not correctable. The things Mark Gronowski struggled with are absolutely fixable and correctable in season. He has to make the makeables. I trust his fundamentals. You think that he's going to be intimidated going into Ames, Iowa? And I'm saying this respectfully. He's played for a national title. He's won a national title. I don't care if it's at the FCS level. That is far more intimidating than go. And whether it be Ames, Iowa, whether it be Rutgers, like this is not solely about Iowa State. I'm just throwing an example out there. He's not going to be intimidated by that. And again, we talked about the way he bounces back, how he continued to close that gap sort of in fall camp. This is a chance for him to really close the gap, because if he goes out there, Trent, throws for 2 touchdowns, 210 yards, runs for 50, and scores another and beats Iowa State, are we talking about Albany next week? We're absolutely not. And all of a sudden, Iowa has a quarterback and they fix the quarterback problem. So that's why I said pump the brakes. Let's see how things play out over the next couple of weeks.
A positive spin on Mark Gronowski. I like that from David Eickholt joining us here today. Well, there were a lot more positives to this Iowa football game. It wasn't just about the quarterback play and Mark Gronowski. We're going to talk about some of those positives and get ready for Cy-Hawk Week as David Eickholt joins us here today on the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Stay right there. We're back with more in a moment. Quick question for all you college football fans out there. If you could go back in time, sit in the front row of your school's biggest rivalry game, what hat would you be wearing? Yes, I said hat. For me, it'd be the game. These aren't just hats. They're the same vintage styles fans wore back in the 80s and 90s. I wore these hats back in the day, and I got a new one. In fact, you saw me wearing it last week on Locked On Hawkeyes. And guess what? They're still the same price they did back then. You can use the code Locked On, and you'll get your vintage hat for just $16.99. Head to thegamecaps.com. Thegamecaps.com. Grab your team classic bar or retro circle design and use code LOCKEDON for an exclusive discount, because legends wear the game. Today's episode is also brought to you by Game Time. College football is back. I couldn't be more excited. The tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands, there's nothing like it. But let's be real, actually getting tickets can feel like more of a battle than the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, prices jumping at checkout. That's why I use Game Time. The app gives an advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices. No surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. Of course, it's Cyhawk Week, and that means expensive tickets. But how many times have you clicked through finding, oh, I thought I got a great deal, and then all of a sudden at checkout, those deals have escalated? Not the case with Game Time. Take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. Trent Condon back with you once again, joined by David Eickholt today on the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Thanks for being with us as always here as we break down the win against Albany and start to take a peek ahead to Cyhawk Week. All right, David, mention the positives, and the running game definitely has to be there. Xavier Williams, a guy that was kind of forgotten about a little bit, coming in the recruiting class because we had a local Iowa kid and Brevin Dahl. That was, I'm sure, a piece of it too. All right, there's this bigger back from Indianapolis. Don't know a whole lot about him. You got some Marcus Coker, some Sean Green vibes from him. Big, but boy, just the way that he read those holes, you could see there's something special there with Xavier Williams.
I got to give a shout out to my colleague, Elliot Clough, because one of the things he posted when he joined Hawkeye Insider on July 1st was some intel he got about Xavier Williams. And he said he's built like he could get 25 to 30 carries right now physically. And there was some Sean Green and a couple other Iowa running backs in there. And our board kind of laughed at it and said, well, that's just speaking in hyperbole. I don't think so, man. I mean, look, I think it's incredibly high expectations for him. And now he's got a real chance to get some extended carries against a really good Iowa State team, because I think you know it now, Kamari Moulton, very unlikely to play this weekend. I'd be stunned. I'm actually just going to mark him out right now. We're going to get our full official update from Kirk tomorrow. But Williams, his quads were brought up by three different people, man, like three different players. And he got asked about it, and he just kind of joked about it. And he said, yeah, they talk about it a little bit, but he did not like talking about himself, even just his demeanor. I would throw in LaShawn Daniels as well. I think there's some LaShawn Daniels to his game, maybe mixing him with Sean Green. Maybe not the breakaway speed, but he's not a slow guy by any means. But I'll tell you, I get where Tim Lester was going with the game plan. Because look, the other part I want to bring up about Mark really quick, and I'll get back to Xavier Williams. He completed 6 of his final 7 passes. His first 3 drives took him a while to settle in. Like, he did get better, and if he played in the fourth quarter, I bet he would have thrown for – look, again, I'm not trying to sit here and say he had an outstanding performance. He did not, okay? I'm making that very clear. I think he would have strung together another 2 touchdowns if Iowa had kept him in the game, barring the cramps. But the offensive line was so outstanding, and for Tim Lester to continue to rotate those young backs, get those guys confidence before they go into Iowa State, because that was Xavier Williams' first real test. Nathan McNeil, who we talked about throughout the last month as well, he had a few nice carries as well. Jazz Patterson, who didn't even really get in the game, I think, till the fourth quarter, he still showcased what he can do. So there were a lot of positives from that standpoint. It's so funny to me, though, too, because think about like yardage on offense, right? Everybody freaks out about 300 yards passing. Oh, that's outstanding. That's tremendous. You run for 300 yards. Oh, well, they only threw the ball for 44 yards.
Yeah.
If it's the other way around, are we talking about that?
Mm-hmm.
Are we bringing up the 44 rushing yards and 300 passing yards and scoffing at it? No, we're absolutely not. So again, not trying to put lipstick on a pig, but it is kind of funny that yardage is still worth the same, but it's still treated very differently as well. So Williams, I think, needs to be RB1 this week. I like TJ Washington a lot, but just from a physicality standpoint, and you look at how violent both line of scrimmages were for Iowa, try to physically wear out Iowa State.
Let's jump over to the defensive side of the football. Well, before we get to the defense, special teams, tremendous again.
Yeah.
Preston Reese, that kid is a wild man on kickoffs, and he's going to be, I think, the next in line. I've had people already ask, why isn't he out there, linebacker? From what I've heard about it's still a long ways to go about understanding the defense. And that's something that's going to still take a little bit of more time. But when he got the physical gifts and kind of, I guess, that screw loose that it looks like he has as he's running down there, that's a good special teamer as a redshirt freshman.
Did you see when he made that second tackle, like he forgot to put his chin strap up and his helmet came off and he was running on the sidelines after he made the hit with his helmet in hand? You know what that reminded me of? And this is scary. I'm not saying he is them. Reminded me of Luke Kuechly and Brian Cushing. Like just complete football maniacs and complete nut jobs. And I mean that in every complimentary sense.
Yeah.
But even on that first special teams possession, like Iowa always needs one or two guys on special teams that aren't the kicker, that aren't the punter, that aren't the return to really step up. I mean, Cooper DeJean as a gunner, Terry Roberts, when he was a Hawkeye, how good he was at that gunner role. Preston Reese looks like he's going to be that dude. And I'll tell you what, man, I do not want to see that dude on a kickoff. I don't want to meet him in the A gap. I'm running out of bounds before I take a hit from that guy. But you're right. I think they love all the young linebackers. And it will be interesting to see because I wasn't particularly impressed with Iowa's linebacker play this past weekend. And if those younger guys continue to ascend throughout the next month, I mean, I don't think anybody's really safe. I will say, though, Zach Lutmer, I thought, especially on that first couple possessions, I thought he really did a nice job of establishing himself.
He got cut in 2 different times that I saw from my vantage point. But outside of that, I was with you. I thought he was really solid back there.
Jane Harrell also should not be guarding a wheel route by the running back wheel route. I don't know how they got caught like that. A little bit of miscommunication, but that's a touchdown if it's against Iowa State or a Power 4 team.
Yep. Can't happen. And there's still some things to clean up. TJ Hall got targeted a couple of different times. Like it's going to happen. On top of it, the Albany kid made a couple of good throws on 2 of those 3 passes that were completed against him. On the defensive side, though, we know what they have on the outside, right? With Herkett and with Llewellyn, they're going to be really good there. Liked what we saw in the middle. Not a ton of Hawthorne, which was surprising, but boy, this is a Brian Allen podcast, by the way. Longtime fan over here of Brian Allen. Kenneth Merriweather, that young man is coming too, isn't he?
Dude, their defensive line is so loaded. Like, to the potential of the underclassmen, I mean, I throw Shinike in there too. I think he's going to be an absolute demon in a couple of years. They have guys. I still think they need one takeover guy. They just need somebody who's a pure pass rusher that can be an 8 and 9 sack guy. They doesn't need quite double digits, but somebody has to be feared. I do think Llewellyn, I think his win rate was 44% this past week. By the way, that's ridiculous for people who don't know that. That is an unbelievable stat. I think Llewellyn could be that guy. I'm not going to scoff too much at the lack of sacks, Trent. I actually thought that Albany's game plan was to get rid of the football quick and just make easy decisions. And I thought the quarterback did a nice job of knowing when to throw the football away. I do think Iowa's going to have to force a couple turnovers. They're going to have to hit Rocco Becht early against Iowa State, right? But I think the defensive line overall played pretty well for the most part. And again, this was such a unique game too, and this is part of it. Look, Iowa is by far more talented. We know that Albany's not a good football team. I don't think they knew what they were walking into. I'm talking Iowa because of how many people Albany lost. And yeah, they kept a couple of coaches. They had no idea about the personnel. They were going what they thought their schemes were going to be. And even Mark Gronowski said post-game, and a couple other players said, look, they were wanting to throw the ball deep throughout most of the game, but Albany actually did not blitz as much as they practiced or as much as they intended. Even TJ Washington said he was surprised how much they kind of sat back. But Iowa really was looking to get the deep passing game going, and I think that was going to try to get Mark Gronowski's confidence up before going into Iowa State, and they kind of had to flip that game plan. Maybe halfway through the second quarter, maybe at halftime they flipped it, but it was interesting. So we'll see, man. I'm very confident about defensive line, defensive backs. I still think it's totally up in the air. I'm still not sold on Iowa State's wide receiver, but guess what? Great quarterbacks make average receivers good.
Yeah.
And Rocco Becht is a great quarterback. I got crap for it last year. I thought he was one of the best quarterbacks in the country and the Big 12 last season. And I think people are finally starting to wake up that, like, this is a very legitimate dude right now.
Let's let you go with this. David Eickholt joining us 24/7 Sports as we look at the matchup against Iowa State. It's on the road. Iowa, though, has a long advantage. 6 consecutive victories, 2011, the last time the Hawkeyes lost in that building. I go back to the last time that Cyclone fans felt this confident. Maybe Iowa fans had some questions going in, and that was the 2021 game. Game day was there, And of course, Iowa found a way to get that victory in that one. It doesn't happen very often, but the script's flipped a little bit this week and the way the Hawkeye fans are feeling and as confident as Iowa State fans are feeling. What are going to be a couple of keys, a couple of things that Iowa's going to have to do if they're going to win in Jack Trice again?
They're going to have to throw the football. I think they're going to load the box. Yes. And this is an interesting game too. This has to be a Tim Lester masterclass, and there's a lot of pressure on him. And I think his pressure he's putting on himself because he's been very open that the one game he really regrets from last year, or felt like they should have won, it was that close. It was that kill shot against Iowa State when they could have went up by another score. And if that happens, I think the game's over.
Yeah.
Right. And he even said they missed it. He made a bad call on one. Then Iowa just missed another call on the other side. And that's something that stuck with him all throughout the offseason. And he said, I'd love another crack at that defense. So I'm very curious what he's going to sort of scheme up. I think Tim Lester needs to do a masterclass there. And as I mentioned before, man, the defensive line, they have to hit Rocco Becht. They have to keep him on the run the entire day. I don't think they're going to have a ton of success running the football against Iowa. And I also think that they need to find a way to create some mismatches because they're going to target tight ends. I think they're really going to try to make Iowa's linebackers work in coverage, especially since they don't have a lot of game experience. So is Iowa going to blitz more? I don't hate the idea of that, but Rocco Becht's also a guy that's going to be comfortable enough to extend a play or take a hit to deliver the ball downfield. So I'm not jealous of Phil Parker's job this week, but I think if you can get after Rocco Becht a little bit, you throw the football, and ultimately it does come back to Mark Gronowski for me, Trent. It really does. He has to have a strong bounce back game, even if he goes out and runs the football, make good decisions. And ultimately Iowa's going to have to force a turnover because not getting a turnover against Albany, it's a little bit alarming for a defense that thrives off opportunities.
David Eickholt, 24/7 Sports, HawkeyeInsider.com. David, for people who want to get involved, you guys do a great job. The articles, the message board, everything happening with 24/7 Sports. People want to get involved at HawkeyeInsider.com, what they can do.
Well, man, we got 75% off that runs for another about 36 hours. That's the best sale we're going to have of the year. We have 3 beat writers right now between Sean Bach, Elliot Clough, and myself. Women's basketball coverage. We've had a bunch of Iowa men's basketball recruiting updates almost daily from Sean. I mean, we're churning out, Trent, probably about 50 to 65 different content items a week. Like we're absolutely locked in this season. So I see locked in, locked on. Got you.
I like it.
Little plug there. But yeah, just go to HawkeyeInsider.com. Again, 75% off. We'd love to have you. And content's only going to continue to grow, man. So we're really, really excited about what we're building.
Thank you, David. Enjoyed it. As always, we'll talk to you again soon.
Appreciate you, buddy. Thank you.
David Eickholt joining us again. HawkeyeInsider.com is where you can find David, Elliot, Sean, the whole crew doing a great job over there of getting you up to date on everything going on inside the Iowa football program. We continue here, Locked On Hawkeyes. Let's take one more look back and give you the grades, the Pro Football Focus grades. We'll get that for you as we break things down. Iowa moves to 1-0, but it's Cyhawk Week. Hate Week is here. We'll take a look at the grades from Pro Football Focus for the Hawkeyes when we come back. Locked On Hawkeyes. Guys, you probably heard of Viagra or Cialis, maybe even tried them. But if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rugiet Ready. Rugiet Ready is a next-gen prescription treatment designed to amplify arousal in the brain and boost blood flow. Unlike the usual pills that can take hours, Rugiet's 3-in-1 formula dissolves under your tongue and kicks in fast, on average in 15 minutes. Effects can last up to 36 hours, so you can stay confident and in control when the moment is right. If traditional options haven't worked, Rugiet might be the answer. Over 150,000 men have already made the switch. I love it's completely online. Rugiet connects you with a board-certified doctor and ships your treatment discreetly to your door. Head to Rugiet.com/LockedOnCollege with the promo code LockedOnCollege to get 15% off today. That's Rugiet, RUGIET.com/LockedOnCollege with the promo code LockedOnCollege for 15% off. Individual results may vary with prescription treatment. Compounded drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law, but are not FDA approved and do not undergo FDA safety, effectiveness, or manufacturing review. Please visit the Rugiet website for full safety information. Trent Condon back with you one final time here on the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Thanks for being with us and making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. And a big thank you to you everydayers with us each and every day here on Locked On Hawkeyes, your daily Iowa Hawkeye podcast. Right now, we have an important request for you. Locked On wants to hear from you. We put together a survey to learn more about our listeners and make your favorite podcast even better. This is your chance to tell us what you like, what you don't, and answer questions about our advertising. Go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey to get started. Everyone who completes the survey will be entered for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Amazon gift cards. Again, that's lockedonpodcast.com/survey. You can find the link in the show notes. And thanks for helping us out. PFF, Pro Football Focus. It is a place that grades the tape for each and every football game across the landscape, both college and pro. And there's things that we disagree with. There's things that we agree with, but I think it gives us a good snapshot, and that's why we run through these numbers and a couple of takeaways each and every. So a quick start just on the baseline and kind of what we're looking for here. A 60 grade is considered average for a game. 70s, you're above average. 80s, good. 90s, that's an elite level performance. So that's kind of the baseline that we're looking at here with the PFF grades. We start at the quarterback spot. Mark Gronowski, a 61.6. This is a combination both of the passing, which was a 54.8, below average, and running, which was above average with a 64.8. So that's what we got with Gronowski. Again, did we overreact a little bit? And one thing I mentioned in the post-game podcast, that touchdown pass to Weegan, I thought was a little bit behind him. No, that was on the money. That was actually a good throw. So a little mea culpa on that one. No surprise at running back. Xavier Williams, the top-rated guy. He was a 74.6 when kind of felt a little bit low. Now, his run gain was a 75. The pass blocking maybe knocked him down a little bit. Jazzion Patterson came in. He looked good. He was a 71. 71 for Nathan McNeil. Same for Moulton. Washington was above average at 66.2, but even Washington felt like there were a couple of those moments with Washington. He was just a little patient, maybe a pause away from having an absolute monster performance. But Xavier Williams, the first Hawkeye debut of over 100 yards in the running back spot since Sean Green 20 years ago. Sean Green was a freshman 20 years ago. Man, we're all getting old. Let's go to wide receiver. Caden Weegan with that touchdown reception. He was a top-graded receiver with the 68. Jacob Gill, solid as always, a 67.9 for him. A little bit disappointing overall from Sam Phillips and Seth Anderson, but again, work in progress there. Tight end, Ortworth, he had a good grade. So did Hayden Large. A little bit disappointing, I thought, for Addison Estrenga. We saw more Hayden Large than I anticipated in this game. Then we finish up on the offensive side of the football. Bo Stevens was the top-ranked guy. He had a 91.7. That's an elite game for him. Jennings Dunker was very good as well, as Cade Pieper was, 87 for both of those guys. Bo Stevens, though, I believe he was the guy that missed on the blitz attempt that came in on that fire block. He slid inside. He was helping up on the defensive tackles when the quarterback came in unscathed there. So I'd be a little bit lower because of that play on Stevens, but overall very good. Offensive line as a whole was good. No surprise on that part. Let's jump over to the defensive grades for the game. Speaking of elite, Max Llewellyn, he had an elite grade. Jonah Pace rated a lot higher than I anticipated out of him. In his limited snaps. Ethan Herkett, very good, as was Aaron Graves, who had that sack as he was helped out by Kenneth Merriweather, who applied the pressure. Mentioned that with David Eickholt. Kenneth Merriweather, he was a little bit lower on this list, a 65.4. I thought he was much better than that. Also good to see Jeremiah Pittman was out there returning, coming off that surgery. He was out there. Carson Shire was your top-ranked linebacker, a 71.6. I thought he was a little bit better than maybe some people thought. I do have some questions about Jaden Harrell and what we saw from him. Defensive backfield, your top-ranked defensive backfield player from Pro Football Focus was Deshaun Lee. He grades out with a 77.7 grade overall. I thought he looked solid out there. TJ Hall, couple of passes given up. Not the case with Lee on the other side. And then some limited guys. Entringer, he had a 64. I had a little bit higher than that, I guess, my weird grading scale that I put together. Lutmer, I think some people were higher than I was in Lutmer's game. Made a couple of good plays, came in there. I think also was sucked in a couple of different times, and that's probably where my knock, but he was really, really good in the tackle game. So that's what we have, those Pro Football Focus numbers. Again, we will pass those along to you each and every week. as we break things down. It is Cy-Hawk Week, and we got you covered here on Locked On Hawkeyes, your team every day. We'll have a new podcast. We will take one more peek at the game, continue to talk to our different voices here on Locked On Hawkeyes, and then really start to ramp up our coverage. We'll have a crossover edition of Locked On coming up this week over on the other side with Nick from Locked On Cyclones. He'll be joining us as well a little bit later on in the week. Thanks for being with us. Hey, make sure you hit subscribe if you're watching us on YouTube. Helps us get in front of more Hawkeye fans, or a 5-star review. Need more of those on the podcast side for your audio-only listeners. Thanks for being with us as always. We'll talk to you again tomorrow. Until then, go Hawks.